that open. Let's get this set up. Do that immediately. Okay, live stream is up on the Patreon. Let's just take a minute to share. Okay, got it on that. That one always takes the longest. Okay, we are capturing voice. Notifs are up. Let me get my headphones on so the music is not blasting everywhere. Okay. All right. We're still capturing from the right microphone. Right. Let me make sure my sound settings are correct. Output, yeah. Okay, it's all good. All right, let's get the music playing. And let's see, is that coming through? Yep, it's registering. Kind of quiet. I'll turn that up a bit. Here we go. Okay, hopefully that should be good. Uh-oh, what's wrong with the bitrate? Let me just check that. A lower bit rate. Okay, it's gone back to just saying good. I'm afraid there's not much I can do about that. Given that I'm directly wired in to my home's Wi-Fi, so I really don't think it's possible for the streaming connection to get any better than that. Alright, well, fingers crossed that this still sounds good in the VOD. Let's begin. Getting close to finishing this update. I went ahead and did most of the sketch work already just so we could move things along a little bit faster here. Alright, you all know the drill at this point.
ones who get it done. The most important
Oh no, ads.
is the one you need now. And the
Skip
best partner
ads.
is the one who can...
There. So this is the only issue with this, right? I'm on Chrome doing all this stuff. And I don't have ad blocker on Chrome, because Chrome has very much killed all the ad blockers. And I'm not paying for YouTube Premium. Because I have enough subscriptions in my life. And then of course this music I'm playing is through a YouTube playlist, so it's just kind of gonna be interrupted on occasion, I guess. Maybe next time I'll see if I can get the music set up on Firefox instead. And these companies really do just like making life harder for the rest of us, huh? I talked a little about stuff I was watching last week. So, this week I figure why not continue that? I have a bad habit of oftentimes not finishing stuff that I start unless it, like, particularly seizes control of my brain. Like with Dawn to Dawn, I could not stop consuming Dawn to Dawn related content. I finished that manga in a weekend, after episode 3 came out. Because I simply could not keep waiting for weekly drops. It just wasn't possible. But like, I haven't actually gotten any farther watching the X-Files, which I talked about last time. So, you know, kind of a bad habit of mine. But, in terms of other stuff I've been watching, I actually got back on something that I had started a couple months ago, which is Kaguya-sama Love is War. I usually just call it Love is War, because, I don't know, the Kaguya-sama part of the title, like, it's a character's name, it makes sense. I just feel like the Love is War subtitle sort of gives people a better idea of what it's actually about. And of course, I feel like people see Kaguya-sama and they're like, an anime, ugh, and then they just, like, stop. But, I had Kaguya-sama recommended to me by just anime fans in general. People really enjoyed that series. I don't know if it's over yet, or if we're just, like, between seasons right now, but there's, like, 3 seasons out. On Disney Plus, actually. I was kind of surprised that it was available on Disney Plus. Of all the sites. Like, when you think about places to go to get your anime fix, I don't think most people, like, Disney Plus is on most people's radar, like, at all. Like, that's a place to get your fill of classic cartoons and movies. So, yeah, that was kind of a surprise. But it came highly recommended as a really good rom-com series, and if there's one thing about the rom-com genre, it's that, they're not always great. In fact, a decent chunk of them aren't that great. They kind of just come off as more annoying. Because a lot of the conflict, it's very, it takes itself very seriously, but the methods in which they create the conflict are also very contrived. Like, it's understandable that these things that the characters struggle with might be an issue for someone in real life, but it wouldn't be dragged out for a whole season the way that some of these series do it. Like, your average person would still probably get their shit together at this point. But Kaguya-sama got a lot of popularity because it very much avoided these pitfalls with 2 easy two easy fixes, which is A, they definitely kept to the calm part of the rom-com. So, like, the entire point of the show is to be funny and to make you laugh at the antics of these individuals. And the characters are all high schoolers. So not only is it like, oh, this comedy stuff is played up to the extreme, but also these are individuals at a very early point in their mental development. So it makes absolute sense that they're like overthinking and, you know, struggling to come to terms with their own emotions and feelings about what they're dealing with. And it lends itself to some very, like, just very good setups for comedy. So it's sort of about these two high schoolers who go to, like, a very fancy private academy with a bunch of very rich and powerful families go there. It's a Slytherin wet dream in that school, basically. Except they're all muggles, so they'd be less thrilled about that part. So you've got all these families that come from these kids who come from very cutthroat political families. So already out of the gate, many of these kids are emotionally stunted way past what even other of their peers would be. So you've got that element holding them back already. Then you've got the fact that the female lead comes from an incredibly strict family. She's like, honestly, her lifestyle is kind of Rapunzel and Cinderella coded, in that she simply does not leave her house most of the time. She is very sheltered, very insulated from the outside world, but also being taught in these very cutthroat business practices. You know, she's being sort of groomed by her family into the perfect model heir to take over for them, and she's not supposed to, like, waste her time dealing with normal kid stuff. She doesn't really get to be a teenager. And she joins the student council, or I guess where she gets hired onto the student council, because it seems like the way it works is the president gets hired, and then he picks whoever joins his cabinet, so to speak. So she gets brought on as this other student's vice president, and this is the male lead, the one that she ends up falling in love with. And he sort of comes from an opposite situation from her, where he's actually one of the only outsiders at this academy. He comes from a poor, average middle-class family. Lower middle-class family. And so he's there purely because he had the grades to get a scholarship that would let him come to this academy. So he's there purely on the backs of his own hard work. So in his own way, he's learned to be cutthroat, but not in the same way that these other kids have, because he still has his close family ties and personal connections like that, and he knows what it's like to be a kid for the most part. Although he certainly has his moments, because he's also got that burnout gifted kid energy. So he's got his own ways that he doesn't understand the world. But he comes into things with a little more perspective than she does at times. But, you know, because they come from such cutthroat backgrounds, or they both have sort of trained themselves into this mindset that they can't show weakness ever, after they fall in love with each other, because the show starts with them already having developed feelings for each other. We sort of start in medias res. We don't get to see how they met, except through, like, flashbacks of the characters reflecting on it later. So we meet the story, they're already head over heels for each other, but the issue is that any relationship that they could have had simply has not progressed because they cannot get themselves to be vulnerable enough to admit that they like each other. From their perspective, love is war, and whoever admits to their feelings first is the loser. I believe the way that the dub translated it is that whoever caves first is quote-unquote the bottom in the relationship, which is an incredibly funny way to fucking put that. Like, oh, if you're the one who confessed first, then you're the submissive partner. It's just such a funny idea to me, because, like, I can't imagine anyone thinking about relationships and love that way, except for incredibly sheltered kids like these. And that's part of why the show works so well as a rom-com, because it really just has fun with this whole idea that you've got these very sheltered teenagers who are feeling feelings for the first time, don't understand it themselves, and don't really have anyone in their lives that they can turn to for advice, because their families are all very cold and unemotional. So it's like, how the hell can I go to my parents to learn about emotions when I've never seen them emote a day in their goddamn lives? And you would think that, the president guy would maybe have a little bit of an upper hand given his upbringing, but no, actually. His parents are kind of completely out of the loop of his life as well, you know? They're kind of more caught up in their normal lives, I guess is the way you can put it. We haven't seen much of his family outside of his sister, though. His sister is such a weird character. I can't figure her out. Honestly, she's kind of autism-coded. Although it was funny, there was one episode where the female lead Kaguya was hanging out with the male lead's sister, and throughout the course of their hanging out, she just starts seeing all the little mannerisms the sister has that remind her of her brother, so she ends up, like... she sort of, like, catches feelings by proxy. Like, it's still her feelings for this girl's brother, but she's projecting them onto the sister so goddamn hard. And there's just, like, a really funny moment where, like, they end the hangout sesh, and the character leaves, and she sort of snaps back into herself and was like, wait, why was I doing that? If you want to read it as a surprise bisexual awakening too, I think that's also a very funny direction to take it in as well. It's like, oh, Does my type extend to more than just the masculine presentation of it? Damn. That's not where the show went with it, but I would think that would be kind of funny. For somebody to realize they're bi because they like the same qualities in their crush's, like, sibling. So yeah, that's kind of a fun show that I kind of just turn on for background noise a lot of the time, because it's not super visuals heavy. The visuals are good. I was surprised to learn that it was made by A1 Pictures, because I always associate them with, like, shitty isekai TV shows like Sword Art Online. But they can actually do a pretty good production if you give them, like, decent material to work with, which I guess makes sense, because these studios aren't often the creators of the stuff that they make. Like, it's not A1 Pictures' fault that Sword Art Online is bland and tasteless. It's really the fault of the original light novel writer. He made Kirito like that, not A1 Pictures. A1 Pictures was just adapting what he already wrote. But when they're given something decent to work with, like Kaguya-sama, you know, it sort of, like, peels back the conceptions, and you're like, oh, actually, they're a really good animation studio. Like, really solid work. Not as good as, like, Science Saru or Trigger or something, but, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not, maybe that's not a fair benchmark to hold every studio to. But Kaguya-sama does have good animation. They do some good visual gags, especially with, pink-haired girl. I'm always forgetting her name. You know what? I'm gonna look that up, because I can't handle not knowing right now. Kaguya-sama, Love is War. Characters. Fujiwara, that's her name. Yeah, Fujiwara. She gets a lot of good slapstick gags in that. She's kind of the resident cockblocker. She'll show up in a scene specifically to crush any sexual or romantic tension the leads have managed to build up while they're alone together. You know, just being a general ball of chaotic energy that keeps things from progressing too quickly so that they can keep running the story out for longer. But I don't mind so much because she's pretty hilarious while she does it. You keep going back and forth on whether or not she's just legitimately dumb and doesn't realize that she's getting in the way, or if she actually knows exactly what's going on, and this is like some part of her master plan, because sometimes her antics do actually end up bringing them closer together rather than stopping the progression in its tracks. And it's in those moments that you're like, is she smart, actually? Am I being bamboozled right now by this pink-haired, by this pink-haired bimbo girl? Like, what? Yeah, that part's pretty funny. Yeah, show's pretty funny overall. And they give development to characters outside the main lane as well, too. Like, they'll take a break to talk about, you know, other students, bystanders who just, like, show up for quick gags within the show. They'll get a little extra development. Like, there's this one character, I don't know her name, but I think it was, like, the first couple of episodes were centered around her getting together with another random nameless student guy. And they were coming to the male and female leads to ask for romantic advice, because they were like, oh, those guys are cool and mature, they probably know stuff about love. And it was just sort of a funny series of, you know, these two characters giving advice that they can't follow for shit themselves. And then those two characters actually got together, and you see them other times throughout the series, and they continue to reestablish, yeah, these two are a couple. Their relationship is progressing, while the main lead's relationship is gathering dust in the corner. And that really is just the point of the show, just how emotionally stunted these teenagers are, and how it's taking them forever to get over this mentality that they have. And they sort of show it by comparing them to these two background characters that are together and are progressing and moving through stages in a relationship. And it's kind of like, you know, you two could be doing this right now if you would just, you know, put your fears away and admit to your feelings. But, you know, at the same time, they're just not ready for that. Their lives have taught them otherwise, and it's gonna take a while before they can finally work past those issues and open up to each other. Which is probably gonna happen, you know? I can't imagine this being a series that just ends without the leads getting together. The romance series will drag it out as long as they can, just to keep, you know, the content flowing. It's like the same way that shonen manga will drag out their fight scenes. But, you know, they usually get together in the end still. That's usually kind of a guarantee. Anyway, I find these series a lot more tolerable than I used to when I was younger, and I think part of that's because I'm older now. I'm a full-fledged adult, you know, in my mid to late 20s. So I can look at teenagers doing stupid things, and it's cute now, rather than infuriating. You know, it used to be, I'd be like, oh, these guys are so stupid. Why aren't they just talking about their feelings? Why aren't they communicating with each other better? And now I have the hindsight to be like, oh yeah, teenagers would totally do that. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what they're feeling. And it just feels endearing rather than frustrating now. I guess it's because you know that they're gonna figure it out someday. You know? Like right now it's all confusing and weird, but a couple years down the line, they'll figure it out. I have a lot more appreciation for romance as a genre in general than I used to. And a part of me thinks that's because the romance stories of my childhood generation were not very good. I grew up in the heart of, like, the young adult dystopia boom and the Twilight craze. And those romances are generally not very well written. Like, Twilight is just a badly written book in general. But even then, I don't like any of the male characters in that. Like, I wouldn't want to be with any of them, you know? I certainly like werewolves more than vampires, but I don't give a crap for Jacob. Not even the Shark Boy version of him. I don't care if he's played by Taylor Lautner, the actor from Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I don't care. He's a very bad character. That's even before what Stephanie did to the poor guy, forcing a baby on him as his love match. Like, why would you do that to your characters? As a creator, you know, I've done some fucked up shit to my characters. I would never do that to them. I would never hoist that destiny upon them, no matter how much I hated them. Ooh. So yeah, when you just grow up with, like, you know, the only romance stories that you're really aware of being really bad ones, it sort of makes it hard to see the genre as anything other than, like, hack-trite, terrible stories. But as I got older and I read and enjoyed more stories, I came to realize the issue was that some authors just don't get it. What makes a good romance or a good relationship? For some reason, the qualities of what people like to see in a romantic pairing like that is just, like, completely lost on them. Or they just don't express the ideas in a way that's actually all that engaging, you know? It's just nice to read a story about two people coming to really like and care about each other. And it's true for, like, any of your relationship dynamics, because really at the end of the day, I think a story is about characters and their relationships with one another. Like, I also love a story about a good, strong platonic friendship. Those are awesome. Speaking of friendships, I don't think Fern is having a good time with hers. Get into that part of the story where we're digging a little deeper into the whys of what these characters are feeling. Stone especially, he and Fern are gonna have a nice talk next chapter. Or at least the beginnings of one. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's baby steps. Oh, this playlist is actually pretty good. Nice. Good part about getting the sketches out early is that I don't have to publicly struggle with drawing the expressions again. It's a little embarrassing fumbling a drawing that many times in a row in front of people. That's what it takes sometimes. I had a professor who told me, you'll draw 99 pieces of terrible art before you draw that one great one. So keep drawing, because you'll never get to it otherwise. That's a good lesson in persistence, I think. You know, the truth is, you'll always make bad art. You never really stop, and that's because art's something you never really stop learning how to do. There's always improvements to be made. And that also means there's always new opportunities to fuck it up at the same time. But you know, my own piece of wisdom is never be afraid to trash a canvas. Never be afraid to just start over, wipe the slate clean, and try something different. If you're really not liking how something turns out. Because I'll get myself locked in these stubborn moments where I'm like, I have to make this drawing that I shat out work. I have to keep polishing and adjusting and fixing it. And sometimes, all I need to do is scrap the piece, start over, and the very next thing I draw is like perfect. Like it matches my original vision to a T. Way better than my first attempt. This eye spot needs to be a little bit bigger. Can't fit those stripes in if it's too narrow. In like an animated production, the character designs would have to be a lot stricter than what I do. Because keeping things like stripes and spots consistent is very hard. That's normally why in a cartoon character design you'll see that they'll make the spots connect to some edge on the character's face. Because it's just easier to keep consistent if there's like a direct point that it always connects to. I, however, am not following that because this is a comic. I can spend as much time on perfecting the individual illustration as I want. Let me check on the stream for a sec. Still complaining about low bitrate. I cannot do anything about that, so we will move on with our lives. Accept the things that you cannot control and focus on the things that you can. That does remind me about some very good advice I've gotten from my dad before, actually. Though he didn't come up with it himself, he was basically... We were talking about this book that we've read before as a family called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is like a genuinely good self-help book, you know? Like a lot of those books, they tend to be kind of fake, you know, kind of shitty. They sort of just give you empty platitudes that you don't really do that make you feel nice in the moment, but you can't really do anything concrete with. But the book actually tells you things like, hey, these are the ways that these people, like, change how they think. That leads to them being more effective in everything they do with their lives. And the first habit is... God. Let me see if I can remember. He watches these live streams, so I'm sure he's gonna be like, that's not what it is if I get this wrong. It's like, it's be proactive. That's what it was. And, you know, when he gave me the basic rundown of what the guy means when he says be proactive, the way my dad put it was, you can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. So it's the idea of understanding and acknowledging exactly how you have control over your life and focusing on that. You know, sort of a change the paradigm of your mentality kind of thing. Change how you think about a situation and you'll change what that situation does to you. And it was after he sort of reminded me of that I kind of started seeing that philosophy. Oh god, ads again, hang on. Okay, we're out of it. Okay. So, and it was after, he told me that I started really, like, seeing it in a lot of areas of life, where it's like, you know, you don't get a say on whether or not you get in a car accident, but you do get a say on whether or not you let that, you know, you have a complete mental breakdown over the fact that you got in a car accident. Or you can look at your situation and say, okay, what can I do about this, you know? I can pull over, I can call a tow truck, I can get myself somewhere safe, I can check on the other people involved in the crash, I can make sure they're okay. You know, I can't do anything about how much my insurance will cover, but I can still call them. I can figure out, you know, things that I can do to make the situation better for me. Or, say in the case of road rage, you know, you can't always control if somebody cuts you off in traffic, but you can control whether or not you let that upset you and cause you to just start cursing, and then you're just in a sour mood for the rest of the day. You know, the decisions that other people make that end up affecting you aren't in your control, but how you react to them definitely is. And then you realize that a lot of the problems that people run into in interpersonal lives and with communication is really just a case of them letting a bad situation get the better of them and not recognizing the way in the elements of it in which they have control over, you know? Not being able to mediate their reaction. And we do kind of teach this already. Like, parents teach their kids all the time, hey, you can't just have a tantrum when somebody tells you no, or when you can't do something. You gotta learn to manage your disappointment. And there's ways that you can manage disappointment as an adult, too. And then other things like long-standing conflicts. Like, if you want to take the conflict in Rising Waters, for instance, you know, the cats and the foxes individually don't have control over what the other faction does to them, but at any time, they could have shifted how they reacted to these situations, you know? Either side at any point could have tried to stop the violence. And could have tried to look for a way to come together, the way that Fern wants to. But they don't. And that's led to a situation that is continuing to spiral and getting worse and worse for all the animals living on the strip together. Fern, of course, doesn't understand it in exactly those terms, since, you know, she's a cat. But she certainly understands the concept in sort of a broader way. Like, she understands that it's up to them whether or not these situations keep happening. And they could be making efforts to stop it, but they're not. And it's just turning into this endless cyclical conflict. And, you know, I think Fern can also see that eventually this is going to reach a breaking point. And, well, a lot more people are going to die than the ones who have already. You know, I think Fern can tell that this is, the way that they're handling the situation now is doing nothing but making it worse. which is also why she's trying to mediate so hard between Kip and Stone. Because she can see that in their interactions is sort of a microcosm of why the foxes and cats don't get along in the first place. Just this stubborn mentality of, you know, these two groups of creatures are not the same. They have different lifestyles and different beliefs and different physical traits. And therefore, it's impossible for them to live in harmony together. You know, it's simply impossible for them to cohabitate the same space. But what Fern recognizes is that, like, that's not true, actually. It's really just you know, disagreements over pride and history that are keeping them from, or that are causing them to come into conflict with each other. It's more of a mentality rather than there actually being something diametrically opposing their cultures. Because that is a thing, you know, there are some cultures whose fundamental values are simply incompatible with one another. But even in those cases, it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to all end in violence and bloodshed, you know? I feel like I should probably talk about my other live streams for a minute. Because while these live streams are private and restricted exclusively to the Patreon, I do have some live streams I do that are public. Like I've recently started doing some video game streams on my own YouTube channel. Normally, we do a stream on my channel every other Saturday. It's like this weekend we're streaming Okami on there. On the off Saturdays, I stream with my friend, one of my YouTube friends. He goes by the Violet Howler online. He's a video essayist, specifically for Kingdom Hearts. Which, if anybody knows Kingdom Hearts, has a lot of content to talk about. And he's between video seasons right now. So we're doing a playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 1 on his channel. On those off Saturdays. So if you want to see me, you can check me out either on my YouTube channel or his on those days. But this week we switched the schedule around a little bit. Okami's on Sunday this week, because Saturday I'm playing the Monster Hunter Wilds beta with a Twitch streamer friend of mine named Little Green Fox. We did a lot of Monster Hunter Sunbreak streams together, and those were really fun. Like, I usually played Monster Hunter, like, solo before then, because I didn't have any friends who played it at the time. But now we have, like, a full hunting party that we can go do stuff with, and it's so much fun. And of course, Wilds is coming out soon, but Saturday, you know, the beta's only out for certain times, for a certain amount of time. And Saturday was the only day that she could really stream it. And I was like, okay, well, this is a big enough of a deal for me personally that I don't mind moving the Okami stream around. And that's gonna start bright and early for me, because it's gonna be like, she's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, so it's gonna be like 11 a.m. her time. But for me, it's like 8 in the morning, so I'm probably gonna get up, eat breakfast, get dressed, and then immediately hop onto a stream with her. But I'm very excited. You know, it's been so long since we played Monster Hunter together. We all kind of got tired of Sunbreak. Not because it was bad, because we finished all the mainline content and then we were kind of just out of stuff to do. Which is pretty normal, you know? You play the Monster Hunter game for a couple of years, and then it sort of falls off your radar for a bit until the next one comes out. Which for me is a fine cycle. Like, I don't mind it at all. Alright. Kip's actually going to be in silhouette for this one because he's so close to the camera. I'll also probably put a blur filter on him, just to give that extra sense of depth. Let me put all these together. I haven't done the shading on those, but I'll get back to it. Sometimes I'll do things a little bit out of order if I'm just really feeling the desire to get to one particular part of the piece. Nice little Gaussian blur. That nose is bothering me. Much like my real nose, which bothers me on a regular basis. I have allergies and I've been getting allergy shots for the past couple of years, which have done wonders for my level of reactivity. Like, it used to be when, like, spring or fall would roll around, I would have these just weeks of terrible reactivity to the pollen count, where I would simply be unable to breathe. Like, unable to take full breaths for long periods of time because my nose was either stuffy or runny. And it was like murder on my sleep and my general sense of comfort. And eventually my mom looked at me in my long sufferingness and went, okay, you're getting allergy shots. But, you know, the unfortunate thing is that the shots aren't like a permanent fix. Like, you need to keep getting them. So that way, you know, your body continues to be exposed to the dosage and will continue to have that low amount of reactivity. So what they basically do is they put, you know, the stuff that you're allergic to in a syringe and inject you with it. They give you like a micro dose of the stuff you're allergic to. And they just do that over and over and over and over until your immune system becomes desensitized to it and it stops reacting every time that like atom, because it feels like sometimes even just pollen existing on an atomic level does it. It keeps your system from jumping into defensive mode every time it shows up. Oh, this is a chiptune version of, man, I don't remember what the song is called. "24 Karat Magic," whatever it's called, by Bruno Mars. It doesn't say that that's what it is on the video, but I don't know, I feel pretty certain it's 24 Karat Magic. Good stuff either way, I like chiptunes. Oh, whoop, wrong paw. I've been feeling bad for my bank account recently, because I have a lot of events planned for this year. I'm going to Anime Expo for the first time, and probably last. I just wanted to go once to see what it was like, because the only convention I've ever been to, really, was that tiny little convention in my hometown, in the city next to my hometown, which was Raleigh, North Carolina. Which, I mean, I guess it's a decently sized convention now. It was much smaller when I was first going to it back in high school. But I've never gotten to go to, like, one of the big dogs, you know, and Anime Expo is, like, the biggest dog. They get all the cool guests and stuff. And I kind of just want to go to the experience once, just to see how it is. So I bought tickets for that. I bought 3-day tickets. I'm gonna have the full experience out of the gate, because who knows if I'll be coming back. But then there's also Lightbox, which I try to go to every year, just because that's animation industry related. So I feel like I kind of have to go for the sake of my career, my non-existent animation career, because I can't get my goddamn foot in the door with these people. I'm still trying. Yeah, I do like going to that because it does put you in contact with creators companies. You know, it's like a school job fair, but for people who aren't in school anymore. And they'll have cool guests crop up as well. Also, this one band that I like is having a tour that's coming to LA, and like, these guys are like decently popular, but still not hyper mainstream. So they have tours, it's just not like a constant and consistent thing. And my mom once told me, for concerts, if there's a band that you really want to go see, you should just go see them, because you never know when you're going to get the chance again. And I was like, fair. So when I saw that crop up in my feed, I was like, you know what? I've never seen them live before. I should go. So I bought tickets for that. And then Owl House creator Dana Terrace is doing a art exhibition with Gallery Nexus downtown. And my friend and I, you know, we're both really into cartoons, even though he's not an animator. So we bought tickets for that too. So I'm going to that. I've got a family vacation planned, but I'm not paying for that one. Thank God. So yeah, I paid for a lot of tickets last month, and my bank account was kind of crying after that. And then I'm gonna spend $70 this month when I buy Monster Hunter Wilds. So yeah, subscribe to my Patreon. Every bit helps me pay for goofy shit, I guess. Every bit helps me not stay broke after I spend way too much money in a short period of time on events and things. Look, I'm not bad with my money, I promise. You can ask anybody in my life, they'll tell you I am a penny pincher to the fullest extent. I guess I was just, you know. Not to trauma dump, I've been feeling a little in the blues. You know, just feel like certain goals aren't being reached, and it's like, man, am I ever gonna reach them? And in that moment I was like, man, I really just want to go do some fun things. I didn't really do a lot of fun things last year. So this year I've got some life experiences lined up. That, you know, they'll make some good memories. It really is the good times you remember most looking back on it, honestly. Like, I remember there were some years I lived through that were pretty shitty. But after a couple other years had passed, I found I kind of was looking back on them nostalgically. Because I was looking back on the good times that I'd had in those years. And the shitty stuff, I kind of forgot about it, you know? It didn't seem as earth-shattering as it did back then. First hour's not even up and we're already a good chunk of the way through all this. Well, I'll keep working if we end up finishing a little bit early. Man, I used to eat up this kind of EDM stuff back in high school. I do still like it, just not to the same extent I did back then. So I sort of can't help but feel a little bit nostalgic when I hear it. Although, I think I'm definitely getting older, because, you know, there's a couple of songs that I've re-listened to since then that do just kind of sound like bleeps and bloops now. Sort of like a, God, what did I even see in this back then? I still like most of it, though. I don't know, I used to say that it sort of reminded me, like, electronic music kind of sounds like how I think Magic would sound. If Magic had audio that went with it, you know. It's very ethereal, very, stream of consciousness. Like the soundtrack of a dream or something. And usually when I listen to this kind of music, I just get all this... It makes for a really cool jumping off point for thinking up of some interesting imagery. You know, more abstract things that define emotion rather than concrete objects and forms. Which is something that I actually struggle with a lot. My art tends to be very literal, very concrete. I draw of recognizable things. I can't really do the whole, like... I can't really do abstract the way that some artists can. It just doesn't come naturally to me. That doesn't look very good. No, we're not gonna do that. Man, I'm realizing this is the second story in a row that's had a very dark color palette. I guess I just can't help it, man. I like putting the characters in dark places. To represent the fact that they're in a dark place mentally. Well, the sun will come back eventually. I'm sure. Hopefully. I don't know, we'll see how this works out for them. It's kind of funny to think I've been doing this comic for 4 years and we're still only in the very early story sections, like... There's a lot of ways I want this series to evolve. A lot of ideas I have that will require quite a bit of setup to pay off later. Do. Oh, whoops, wrong layer. Wrong layer, Crunk. Oh man, I should make that. That'd be a really funny artist meme. Erase the layer, Crunk. Wrong layer! My fellow 2000s kids would appreciate that. Who doesn't love a good Emperor's New Groove meme? That's one of those movies that has, like, a surprising amount of staying power. Like, I mean, even I look at it as an adult and I'm like, this feels like it should be an Ice Age type movie. Like a later Ice Age type movie. Or like an Illumination type movie that, like, it's fun in the moment and you enjoy it while you're watching it, but it simply leaves your mind after you're done and it never returns again. But no, because it's like, it's genuinely really funny. It has a lot of good moments, as illustrated by the sheer amount of memes it has. I think you can generally tell, the strength of a story's ability to connect with an audience by how many memes it generates on the internet. If your series generates a ton of memes, congrats, you did it. And I specify that it's its ability to connect with people and not its level of quality, because, I mean, there's plenty of series out there that, like, don't have a ton of memes, but are still really good, like, from an objective, technical standpoint, really impressive stuff. They just don't connect with the consciousness as hard as some others do. And it seems like comedies in particular are really well positioned to become meme factories. And I guess that makes sense, because, you know, if something makes you laugh, you tend to think pretty highly of it. That's why so many people jot down a good sense of humor as an ideal quality in a partner. Ooh, alright, it's 4 o'clock. That means it is time for the artist to have a break. We'll go for 5 minutes so I can stretch and get some water. I will be right back. Continue to enjoy these sick jams. See y'all then.
gives you the power of AI to build the website you need with full business functionality.
Alright, hello! I am back with a cookie. Excuse the crunching. Or maybe some of you ASMR people like that. I don't know. Anyway. Let's get back into it. My mom texted me one day and she was like, hey, what Girl Scout cookies do you want? And I was like, oh, it's happening again. She'll do this just about every year the Girl Scouts come around. She'll just ask everybody in the family what cookies they want and send them to us, which is great because my personal favorite is the lemonade cookies. These are so good. It's like classic shortbread cookie with lemon flavored icing on the bottom of it. Holy cow, it's so good. This one was like a recent addition. I think they added it like a... Oh god. It might no longer be considered recent. Did it start when I was in college, maybe? If so, it's been over 5 years at that point. Yeah, I don't think that counts as recent anymore. Oh, I hate getting older. Well, anyways. They are still incredibly delicious. And I've got a whole carton of them and a couple other flavors hanging out in my closet. So while I was getting water, I remembered I had those, and my brain was like, you must eat one now. And I was like, well, if you insist. Yeah, I love those cookies. My mom also bought us their newest flavor, which was a French toast cookie. Which it's kind of the same thing as the lemonade cookies, only the icing on the bottom of it is cinnamon flavored instead of lemon. And that one's really good too. Of course, I also do ask for a box of just their regular shortbread every year, so maybe I just really like shortbread. But it does legitimately taste like French toast. It's kind of crazy to me that just putting a little bit of cinnamon on that like shortbread cracker type dough, it replicates that same taste. So, I've never been able to find a place that replicates the French toast they made at this one Disney resort that I went to when I was like I don't know, 12 or something. It was actually cinnamon and sugar on this really fluffy French toast. It was honestly more of like a pastry than an actual like slice of toast. And it was just covered in like cinnamon and sugar and a little bit of syrup on top. Oh, it was so good. Probably super unhealthy for you, but so good. And I've just, that's one of those flavors from your childhood that you simply yearn for forever. Because it can't be replicated, man. Like, even if you do manage to find the same food again, it's been so long and your taste buds have changed so much, it probably won't taste the same again anyways. But man, I think about it. I think about it a lot. That shit haunts me. Excuse me. This is probably why you shouldn't eat on live streams. To avoid making weird bodily noises into the microphone. Not out of any sense of politeness, but because I know the internet. I know there's freaks out there. Hopefully none have access to these videos, but I know they exist. I ain't gonna let my guard down. Squinty eyes. You know that moment where you take like a 20-minute power nap and you wake up and have completely lost all sense of time and space? Like you don't even know where you are anymore. That's what Fern's going through right now. Mostly because the space that they're in is just uniform ambient dimness. You know, like they're trapped underground in a giant office building. So without, that changing of light throughout the day, it's like, it's really easy for your body clock to get messed up in a situation like that. Like, Fern wakes up, she's got no idea if she slept for 5 minutes or 5 hours. Because there's just nothing here to tell her what's going on at all. Certainly makes feeling rested kind of difficult. So, here's a little art lesson. Gradients are a good way to give a background a sense of depth without having to draw a background on there. So I'm just like slowly fading, transitioning this panel into black at the top. Just sort of give the idea that like the ground is fading into the distance behind her, and it's all this one flat uniform color. Because there's not a lot of room in this panel to really suggest setting. It's like a mid-shot of Fern's face here. So, a simple gradient will do the job, and then of course we draw the moss nest underneath her, which will also help giving that sense of space. I watched a pretty good moss tutorial on YouTube a couple weeks back because I was looking at the way I was drawing the moss before and I was like, yeah, I don't like this. I want this to look better. And it was a really good job explaining how to render it, although it wasn't using Clip Studio. So I didn't have access to all the materials that she did, but I managed to figure out a way to generate a pretty similar effect. Although this method I'm using isn't perfect. Because she had like a crap ton of layers to render that moss, and I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I really don't have the time in my production schedule to dedicate that much time to the moss. So I found a way to sort of match what she was going for in a way that I think still says moss without having to spend 4 hours on it. And that's how it goes with these productions a lot of the time. You have to learn, you know, it's sort of a give and take process. You sacrifice in one area to gain in another area. You sacrifice time to get quality, and sometimes you gotta sacrifice quality to get time. For comics, no one panel has to be the Mona Lisa. It's great if you can do that. And of course, a beautiful comic panel that, like, in and of itself can be printed out separately and hung up in a gallery as a work of art. Fantastic, you know, and it's always good to have those every once in a while. The panels that are really meant to dazzle and to wow, but not every panel has to be the Mona Lisa. At some point, they just need to serve their purpose of expressing what is necessary for the narrative. And you can save those money shots for the moments that really matter. The big action scene, the dramatic reveal, the emotional climax. A picture of a cat sleepily waking up from a shitty nap is not one of those times. I'll usually decide how to balance my background art time based on how much emphasis the background really needs. Like, is the background a focus of the shot? Or am I trying to give the audience a sense of the space and the layout? Is there an object in the background that I need to highlight for Occam's razor purposes? Or not Occam's razor, Chekhov's gun purposes. If so, then yeah, we're going to dedicate more time to the background. If not, I'm going to prioritize drawing the characters in greater detail than the backgrounds. And in this shot, the background is definitely not important. Not the most important, I should say, because the background's always important. It's just not the focus right now. It's not about you, background. She looks so dead. Poor girl. It's been a long couple of days for Fern. Especially having to babysit the boys like this. Side note, I'm kind of thrown by the number of people who thought Fern was a boy. Which, like, I get. Fern's pronouns didn't really come up in the dialogue at any point during the introduction pages. But at the same time, I also don't feel like Fern looks particularly masculine. Although it could certainly be hard to tell with cats, they're not very sexually dimorphic. I think it's like male cats have a slightly broader forehead. And that's like it. But I feel like a lot of her design elements from, like, you know, small face, big eyes, big ears, kind of gives this more cute aesthetic going on. I thought she felt pretty feminine coded in her design. But not always the case, it would seem. Several times in the comments, I found people being like, oh, Fern's a guy, and I'm like, no, sorry, Fern's a girl. hate to disappoint or anything if you wanted Fern to be a girl. Or Fern to be a boy, but, you know. She's not. She's a hard-working single lady. Just trying to stop, her home from being forever raided by foxes. Oh, I forgot her brown stripes. I was like, what? Why does Fern look different? I'm forgetting something. How could I forget her beautiful, beautiful stripes? I don't know the name for this type of coat pattern where it's like spots of color that have tabby stripes in them, but I think it looks really cool. I guess Fern's technically a calico because she's got these tricolor markings going on, but there's stripes in the orange ones, you know. She's got orange tabby somewhere in her family. Not that I'm following cat genetics too much. I think I mentioned this in episode 1. I just like to come up with cool designs. I do tend to try to make family members look related, so I'll like have similar coat patterns and colors crop up, but normally it's just a matter of what do I think looks cool? What do I think would be an interesting cat design for people to stare at for 50 pages of webtoon? Got a highlight on that eyelid. I saw online this really cool product. It's a textured paper covering for your touchscreen. So when you draw on it with your pen, it feels like real paper texture. Although I did also receive the warning that if you don't have the right nibs for it, it can kind of ruin the nib tip. It also looked like the one that the person I saw online had was for an iPad, which I don't use Apple products usually. I usually use Microsoft. Like I work on a Surface Studio, which is a fantastic PC for drawing, by the way. I quite enjoy it. Having this big old rotatable screen that I can use, but I don't know if they sell any paper textured coverings that would be compatible with that. I would love it if they did, though. I would be all over that shit. I don't know what this patterning is called. I've seen it mostly used as a shorthand for characters being drunk in comics. But I've also seen it as just a general shorthand for confusion. And I think it makes sense here, you know, sometimes, it's like I said, you wake up from those really shitty naps and you feel kind of like disoriented and dizzy and maybe even a little bit nauseous. It kind of feels like having a hangover.
A mustard stain on your favorite shirt? Oh, man. Yep, distracting. Your neighbor's backyard pickleball court. Distracting. But one place you don't have to put up with distractions is in your photo.
Oh, ad. I keep spacing out. I get in the zone and then it's like, why is there a person talking in my ear instead of the music? It's an ad. Surprise. Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna try to see if this will work on Firefox next time. Alright, I'm gonna take a second to stretch. We have finished the 5 panels for the day. We still got half an hour left. I guess I can finish up at least the sketches for the rest of them. Yeah, let's do that. I don't know if any of you Webtoon viewers have seen, but they're doing a Webtoon comic contest starting in March. And I'm definitely entering in that one. I've actually been adjusting how I do the comic a little bit to try to meet their benchmark requirements, because it said for the action genre that you need to have at least, what was it? At least 40 panels per chapter that you submit. And I kind of looked at mine and I was like, I don't think there's 40 in each of these. So I've actually been making the last couple of updates much longer, so that by the time the March contest rolls around, I'll have some chapters that I can actually submit. I think I want to make this a little bit more of a close-up. I'll sort of center Fern in here. And then I'll put in some perspective guidelines. Define that roof plane. So this is the kind of panel that would get more attention for the background stuff, because it's just a background shot of the roof, specifically. Fern's sort of looking around, sort of looking up and being like, ah, shit. Can't tell at all what time it is.
Hit pause on whatever whatever you're listening to and hit play on your next adventure.
No
Get
ads.
a 50
No ads. No ads. Ah!
Make the most of it at Best Western.
Ugh.
Visit bestwestern.com for complete
Oh
terms.
god, this is an unskippable. Some close-ups of just the eyes. I love a good eye focus shot. It's such a good opportunity to do like micro expressions and really like sink into how the characters are feeling. Try to put like an impression in here to indicate that it was slept in, but is no longer slept in. Someone's not here. Oh no. Who could it be? Where have they gone? Only the update will tell. I usually leave the background sketches pretty indistinct, mostly because I tend to add all the details when I'm doing the actual color.
There's no such thing as
Oh my god, another one. I swear, we have no ads for like an hour straight, and then every video's given them to me. Holy cow. Okay. I was looking for an ad blocker in here, but I don't see one. Well, a problem to solve later. When I'm doing really dramatic angles like this, I'll usually try to sketch in a little bit more of the body shape. Just because when they're in an angle like this, there's a lot of foreshortening going on.
Naloxone reverses an opioid overdose, even if you
And foreshortening is very difficult.
Naloxone.
It's something I still struggle with
Nah.
a lot of the time to get right without looking
Luxy
incredibly
Flex
wonky.
and own, like naloxone can save lives in our very
Wah,
own
more
community.
ads, skip. We're having fun art time. I don't want to talk about fentanyl and the drug supply. Although I did watch a couple episodes of The Wire the other day because my dad said it was good. That's one of those, like, prestige television shows that everybody talks about, kind of like Breaking Bad or The Sopranos. I guess I can see it. I didn't get very far. It certainly felt different from, like, other cop shows that you see. It definitely felt more like one that was willing to deal with the reality of what the war on drugs was like and the treatment of those who were often caught in the crossfires of its many policies. You know, like, it's not out here to tell you that drug pushers were fantastic, upstanding citizens. But it's also willing to acknowledge, like, hey, a lot of these people did this shit because they were just in a really bad way. And a lot of the policies that law enforcement enacted was really just about, you know, dealing with the crime but not doing anything for the root cause of it. And, you know, like a lot of these other situations, it just kind of made a bad situation worse. A close-up like this is usually when I'll add more details onto the face, like the nostrils. My cats never have nostrils, it's just like an extra feature that isn't really necessary because their noses are so damn tiny.
The computer technology has been moving in a way that nothing else people have ever known.
I'll say crazy EDM song. Man, computers have done some whack shit since my childhood. I grew up at an interesting time, being born at like the tail end of the 90s and growing up in the 2000s. My childhood started with portable CD players and battery-powered MP3s, and it ended with smartphones and home laptops and touchscreens. It's honestly kind of insane how fast that growth and change was. Like I remember my parents' first iPhone. I remember asking for it when we were stuck in an office somewhere waiting for something and playing, like, with the lighter app. Or with the, you know, fake piano app. And then, like, I also remember, like, asking for it to listen to music. And of course, the only music was on it was my parents' music. So it was, like, stuff from their childhood, from, like, the 70s and 80s. Which I guess really did have a big influence on my music taste, because I like a lot of the classics today. I was kind of thrown when I got my first job working in a retail store, and I was hanging out with people who were younger than me, like late high school, early college. And Dreams came on over the radio, which is pretty common if you're listening to like a classics or an oldies station. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac is just like a really common song to hear. And I like it a lot, so I was like, oh, I love this song, na na na. And then one of my coworkers was like, I always wondered who sang this. And I'm like, you don't know who sings this? And she was like, no. And I was like, it's by Fleetwood Mac. And she was like, who? And I was like, you don't know Fleetwood Mac? And it struck me as odd that someone could have grown up without their parents showing them Fleetwood Mac songs. But I guess other parents don't really like... I don't know, my parents were really big into music when they were younger, so it's just kind of a natural thing for them to like play a lot of music for us when we were younger and to sing in the car and things like that, so I guess I just had more exposure than other people did. Alright, well, didn't quite reach that 2-hour mark, but I'm literally out of stuff to work on right now. And I'm pretty tired. Oh, my back's stiff. It's usually a sign that it's time to take a break and stop drawing for a while. Alright, well. I hope everybody had a great time watching. If anybody watching the VOD's got any comments or questions, please leave them below on the Patreon post. I'd still love to see that from anybody who wasn't able to join us live. I'll be seeing you guys next Monday for another production stream, or perhaps this weekend if you want to come watch the Monster Hunter stream on my friend Little Green Fox's Twitch channel, or Sunday on my YouTube channel if you want to watch me play Okami. So yeah, until next time, cheers!